Hi, and welcome to the second episode of my podcast, I Will Never Watch Evangelion, a show in which I discuss with a guest anime, our experiences with anime, anime in general, our favorite shows, cartoons, just things that are of the animated genre. And today I am joined by my very good friend and pal, Ezra. Hi, Ezra, and welcome to the show.
Hello, I'm Ezra.
So, tell me, Ezra, what's your experience with anime? Where'd you first get started? How do you feel about like the medium? And also like what brought you to the show?
Well, I listened to Tiff's episode last week, and I had a really similar origin story. I was watching things like 4Kids, and even on Cartoon Network, they would have things in Toonami, and I got acquainted with like Winx Club and I'm trying to think of the other ones like Avatar and that kind of thing. Shows that weren't like technically anime but had that style.
But like were like the like Western anime style.
Yeah, stuff like that. And that kind of made it so that I was aware of that style and it became more recognizable to me. And then as I got older, I was going to events at my local library and they had anime club, and that's how I got exposed to, I think the first one we watched was like School Rumble. And my librarian would like give me box sets to like take home and just binge watch. And,
oh shit!
Yeah, and from there it was like I got into like a DeviantArt hole, and you go to DeviantArt and it's just like a bunch of maladjusted like teenagers all like screaming about anime, especially in like the late 2000s.
Yeah.
So that's how I kind of branched out from there and discovered stuff and fell more into the wormhole. For me now, anime, like, a big thing about it is just, I really love, like, stylistic anime.
Oh, yeah.
And anything with an interesting, like...
plot or premise.
Exactly, yeah. But for me, it's very, like, seeing how people push the limits of animation and that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Also love when it's gay.
Oh, dude. When it's gay, it's okay.
I have, like, yaoi fangirl origins, unfortunately, but it's okay because now I have become the yaoi man.
Yeah.
With the yaoi hands.
I didn't know about yaoi hands until I was in college, and then I had the startling realization that I probably have yaoi hands because my hands are just naturally very large. And it didn't help that one of my friends was like 4'11" and had really tiny hands.
Oh no.
So like we would compare hands and my hand would just be like oven mitts on there.
It's like the picture of that one like manga where the dude's hand is like quite literally like wrapped around the other dude's like entire like wingspan of shoulders. Absolutely horrific. At a certain point it just becomes like genius horror more than anything else.
Oh yeah, definitely. So now that you mentioned your beginnings with anime, like if you had to like pick like a show, series, movie, just any like thing, like that would be like your favorite of the medium. Like if you just like had to think off the top of your head, what would you say is like just like your go-to like bread and butter? This is like made for me pretty much. And I just, every time I watch it, it's just a good romp.
I've only watched it once, and I don't know if I'd even consider it my favorite, but I think the anime that had, like, the most impact on me was Madoka Magica, which I know is a pretty common answer, but it's just...
it's such a good show,
It's so good, and I'm a serial anime starter and never finisher.
God, that's such a big move.
And... that one I watched it in like quite literally like a couple days and stayed up like all night like into like 3 a.m. and I just remember like when I finished it just like crying my eyes out. Like it just hit me like an absolute train in a like I think I was like a freshman or a sophomore in high school, and it just destroyed me. It really set like my tastes as far as like what I looked for and like plot wise and what I really liked art style wise. Like I just started really digging that style and just really I don't know, like I don't even know if it's something I'd want to go back to. Kind of like another anime that impacted me fairly recently is Devilman Crybaby, where I guess I just like really difficult stories and how they can be told again through like pushing the limits of animation and what they can do to enhance those kind of stories. But they always have like a really profound impact on me, and I think that's what I'm looking for with like anime when I get really into something. It's just something that kind of like, I guess, fucks me up a little bit.
Yeah.
And gets to me.
Honestly, like, I completely understand that. Like, I know I like briefly touched upon it in like the first episode, but like one of the first anime I ever watched was like Kill la Kill, and just like I remember I just like powered through the whole thing in like a weekend or something, and it just like because like the time in my life when I watched it, it just felt like it was like very much like something I should be watching, because it was right on the cusp of when I started realizing I had something going on gender-wise.
Oh, yeah.
And just like I joked about in the first episode, but like it quite literally awakened gender dysphoria within me, because like it's just, I mean, it's sexy anime, ladies, and I was a junior in high school. Like, I just remember watching and being like, man, I wish I was that. Wait a minute.
Yeah, it was a similar experience for me, not with the anime that I talked about, but like I joke about like how I'm like a former Yaoi fangirl, like that kind of type of person, and that's something that I tend to distance myself from because I don't think it was my best moments.
Yeah.
But it was very instrumental in me getting into like slash culture and fandom and shipping culture and that kind of thing, and having a lot of realizations about my own gender and sexuality through how I connected to that kind of thing. So I think that, like all media and art, anime and the culture surrounding it can be definitely instrumental in how you like figure out things about yourself.
Yeah, I totally get that. All right, so now we've got like the introduction stuff out of the way. I think it's time we're gonna go take a little break and watch the first episode of Mob Psycho 100, and then we'll come back to discuss it. Are you ready, Ezra?
I'm ready, yeah, for sure.
All right, hell yeah. We'll see you all on the other side. All right, and so now we're back. We just finished the pilot episode of Mob Psycho 100, critically acclaimed Japanese animated series. So, Ezra, tell me, what are your thoughts having watched this?
Well, okay, so like I love Mob Psycho, but it's been a long time since I watched it, and I forgot just how much I loved it. While we were watching it, we were talking about how much we loved like one's work, but I just I don't know. I remembered the animation in it, and even then, it was just like even better than I remember. And I think like I always remembered it as an exceptionally like funny anime, but I wasn't sure if it would like, I guess like meet the expectations I had of it, like from my memory, like if it would hold up. And the comedic pacing in it is just so good. Like it's it's so funny, and it's so visually appealing, and I love the characters, and I might have to rewatch it and catch up because I only watched the first season. So it might be time to fix that now, because I think I reignited a spark in my brain.
Honestly, I feel that so much. It's been so long since I've also watched the first episode, and just rewatching it, just like the art style and like you said, the comedic timing and just everything. It's just such a like well put together and well executed like show. It's just like I'm at a loss for words, because it's just my goblin brain is just saying pretty animation, funny joke.
It's a very like as someone who, you know, is sensitive to like sensory stuff, it's just very pleasing. It's, dare I say, stimulating. It's just a lot of good visual input. And something I noticed, and I brought this up while we were watching it as well, is the diversity of animation styles and the way they use that to create so much visual comedy.
Yeah,
and like they'll have like the still drawings and the watercolors, the really detailed like etchy kind of stuff.
And like
it's
when it like shows like their faces or whatever, like Reagan's face, and he's just like
it's like super detailed, and then it goes back like to just being like a the blank.
That's why I love One's like work so much. Like there's like that meme from like One Punch Man where it's just like Saitama like deadpan and it just says like okay.
Yeah.
You know, I just remember like just like the humor of like his work and just like the way that like they incorporate his art style into like the animation is just like I'm just like a really big fan because like I know like the shtick with like one is that like his like origins are like very much from like the perspective of someone who's not the best artist. You know, like if you go back and look at like the original One Punch Man webcomic pages, like objectively they're not very good art, but they get the job done, and it like portrays like such a unique style to them. Like it's very stylistic but not very detailed, and like I feel like with like Mob Psycho 100 and also like One Punch Man, like they just like when they were doing the animation for it, I feel like they were able to incorporate like aspects of the original source material and one's original like drawings into them while still like having it be visually pleasing, you know?
Yeah, I think something I actually read a while ago, and it was something that was kind of in the back of my head while I was rewatching this, was that that really simplistic style allows for so much flexibility, which is why I think you see so often in like one's stuff like with One Punch Man and with Mob Psycho 100 this like ability to, and I keep using this phrase, but just like really push the animation to its limits and like come in with all these crazy colors and these really dynamic kind of engaging scenes. Even like that's something you kind of think about when you're thinking about like a fight scene, but it's used so often for comedy too, to have these like really melodramatic moments or these like really funny kind of like almost grotesque expressions, and then going from that to like snap back to just this very like simple like expressionless face makes for some really like great comedic moments. It's just brilliant. It's so good. It's so good.
I honestly like Mob Psycho 100 is definitely like up there with me in terms of like best anime I've watched, like because it just feels good to watch, you know? Like to look, feels good to look at, feels good to listen to. Just everything about it is just such like a feel good, like just genuinely good quality show. It's like when you like go to like your favorite restaurant and order your favorite food, and you take that like first bite and you just the taste in your mouth that just like envelops you.
You're reminded of why you love it so much.
Yeah, you're like instantly reminded of why you enjoy it so much, and are just like you really get a sense of just how good it really is. You know, like it's exactly how you remembered it being. It's just
it's a show people cared about too.
Yeah,
like it's so crafted, and I talked about like the diversity of animation styles and that kind of thing. You can see that there were so many choices made, and I think that's so important when you're thinking about like if someone cared about what they were making, you can see the choices. If there's no choices made and someone's just phoning it in, it's apparent, and that's absolutely not the case here. It seems like every second of the show has this kind of thought put into it. It's just fantastic. It's magnificent.
God, I really feel that. It definitely is. Do you have anything else you would like to say about our watch of the first episode of Mob Psycho 100?
No, I think that's pretty much like my first impressions, or I guess not my first impressions because I've seen it before, but my first impressions on a rewatch of the pilot.
Yeah,
it's such a good pilot.
It
really grabs you. I guess that would be the other thing as I want to say is pilots are so important, and I've seen a lot of shows that I love that I don't think had strong pilots. I think Mob Psycho just has an incredibly strong first episode where like it tells you everything you need to know about the show you're getting into and why you should love it, and then just grabs you where it's like by the time you finish you're like, okay, I'm ready to watch like 10 more hours of this.
God, I feel that. The other day I was like hanging out with Tiff and we were like just doing like other things, so we just put on Naruto in the background just for like background noise, you know, when we were playing video games or whatever. And like I just remember like we put on the pilot, and just like halfway through like our video games and stuff, like I just like tuned out and just was like just invested in what was going on, because like it was much better than like I originally remember. Like it's just pilot episodes are just really good at like or they can be, and like finding a show with a good pilot is just chef's kiss.
Yeah,
it's just very good. Like that's kind of like what happened in the first episode when Tiff and I watched the pilot of Eva. Like I was expecting it to be like how I remembered Eva, you know, which was like, you know, I'll get into that later.
Yeah, we'll save that.
We'll save that for later, but I was expecting it to be like how I normally see Eva, but like the pilot episode does a really good job at like really sinking its teeth into you and wanting you to like see it, because like I don't think they show like the first fight. I think they just like it ends off like where Shinji's in the Eva and he's about to fight the angel. Like I think that's where it ends off.
Shinji gets in an Eva.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
Spoiler alert for critically acclaimed Japanese animated series Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Well, now I'm like all wrapped up in the excitement of you talking about this critically acclaimed Japanese animation.
I think we gotta go watch an episode.
I think we do.
An episode, yeah. So
I can't wait anymore.
I'm about to bust. I simply must watch critically acclaimed Japanese animated series Neon Genesis Evangelion, now available for streaming on Netflix.
We gotta do it now, RG.
We gotta do it now. Alright, and we are back from watching episode 2 of critically acclaimed Japanese animated series Neon Genesis Evangelion. So, what did you think, Ezra?
So I mean, I should open this up. I liked it. I guess like I was invested. I really liked the pacing of it. I enjoyed the way that it used like silence a lot, which I think is kind of like a weird thing to say, but
no, but like I totally get you. Like silence is like if you can use it properly, it really does speak volumes for like the medium that it's in.
Yeah, there was something about the whole vibe of the show where it just feels like I think they use a lot of shots, at least in the episode we watched, which was the second one, where it's like the characters are very small in the frame and there's a lot of like negative space, and it just makes everything feel so lonely. And combined with like these long moments of silence, like especially in the beginning of the episode where Shinji's like just kind of sitting with himself and he can't remember much of anything, and he's like looking at his arm or he's looking out the window. Everything is just so like ominous and uncomfortable and eerie. I think eerie is the word I'd use. And, and it's just like it keeps cutting back between that and then the people are in like the field and they're talking and there's chatter and there's all this like kind of ambient noise happening with people working on things and cars going by, and it kept cutting from that back to the hospital where it was just like dead silent, and at one point like he's in a chapel I think or something, and it was just something about it was just like really getting to me, like how eerie it was while the whole world, despite everything else, was kind of moving on around him, and it just really made you get into his head and like feel very uncomfortable and creeped out. And I thought it was really, like, as someone who hadn't seen the first episode, it was really effective at catching me up to speed to understand where the main character was emotionally.
Yeah.
That was one of the first things that I think struck me.
Oh, definitely. As someone who has, despite their personal preference, seen the first episode, the second episode really does just, like, I will give it credit. It's actually, like, really solid. It's, like, the first episode ends where, like, it's, like, all intense, and they're, like, the Eva's just being deployed and it's ready to fight the angel, and it leads you to believe that like the second episode's gonna open up with like a regular like punchy fight, like high action fight, but then like the second episode it doesn't really. It like briefly like goes over, like shows a little bit of the fight, but it doesn't like. The main point of the episode is not to like be like a spectacle fight. It's like it really like the point is to drive home like how Shinji's feeling through like just like the emotion of like the shots and like the, as you said, the use of silence and everything. It just really paints like a picture of like what this child is going through.
That's interesting that you say that, because having that context is very interesting to me, because it makes me think like if I was watching the first episode and then I was like all geared up, like, okay, the next one's going to be a fight, and it opens on that fight, and the fight is so brief, and it it's like almost like you've blown your load really quickly.
Yeah.
To use a really crude metaphor, it's very quick and it's disappointing, and there's that moment where they're like, oh, I'm taking a step, yay, and then like he just crashes and burns, and the episode focuses more on that aftermath and like the impact that this has. And there was that one line where they're like, well, we threw him in the deep end really early, and I feel like in maybe a different kind of show that would have been a really big triumphant moment where it was like, despite everything, he makes it through, but it was very real.
Yeah.
The show just has like a really like foreboding vibe about it that like gets under your skin, and it's a big reason why I've tried to watch it before and like couldn't, because it just like it gave me like a weird vibe. But being ready for it this time, I was able to really respect like how it makes that energy like transfer to you. It's pretty impressive.
Honestly, yeah. I've really, like you mentioned the pacing earlier. I've watched, I will admit, I've watched up to episode 18 previously. This was like years ago.
RT.
I know.
What?
Scandalous.
It's all a lie.
It's all a lie. The anime's a lie.
Oh my god.
I've tried giving this show a watch so many times, and my previous issue was actually the pacing, because I felt like back then, like I think it was like 2018 was when I like last really tried to give it a watch. I remember like just not being a fan of the pacing and just thinking it like dragged on too much, and that. But I think I was just in the wrong mindset for it. I think I was
I'm
just
converting you right now.
You really are, because like before I was going into it expecting it to be like a spectacle of like just giant robot anime, pew pew. There's a deep message, but like it's all like fancy fights and stuff. But like Evangelion's not that. Or at least based on from like the 2 episodes I've seen so far in this podcast, like it feels like it's more so about just like the aftermath of what happens when you make a child fight your war for you.
It's very psychological. It feels to me like it takes the idea of like a lot of I'm not like super into mecha anime, which is funny because, as you know, I'm like a huge Pacific Rim fan.
Yeah.
But it was never like the mecha element of it was never like my primary interest. But like I know that a lot of mecha anime are very like kind of, I don't know how you'd say it, but they're not like this psychological or cerebral, and they're kind of based in this realm of like fantasy and wish fulfillment, I think, like just from what I've seen of at least some of the more lighthearted ones. And it feels like this anime like takes that concept and is like, but what would really happen if you did this? Like, what would this do to people, hooking their brains up to these giant machines and that kind of thing? One thing I thought was really cool just on like a visual aspect was I loved during the scene where Shinji is in the Eva, all the little like graphs and charts and stuff they show us. It's again like when we were talking about Mob, like just very visually appealing and engaging, and it also kind of, when the show's not doing these long quiet shots, it's very good at portraying like chaos and making you feel really anxious. And that was one of the points when it does it. It does these quick cuts and these like flashes of things and creates this kind of like really crazy tone. I know you said you weren't a fan of the pacing, but I thought that kind of like quick switch back and forth.
I should emphasize my opinion that I wasn't a fan of the pacing. Is it more overall? I think that was just like a past opinion because I went into it with the wrong expectations of the show. I went into it expecting it to be something that it wasn't, and when it didn't live up to those expectations, I was disappointed with the pacing and just like how everything went. But like watching it now, like I think the pacing is actually really good for it. You bit into NGE expecting chocolate chip cookie and you got an oatmeal raisin cookie. Yeah. And it's not that you hate oatmeal raisin, but it's not a chocolate chip cookie. Oh yeah, yeah. So your brain needed to adjust. I mean, I personally, like, real talk, I do like a good oatmeal raisin cookie. But yeah, like that's the thing. If you like if you get into something under the expectation that it's something that it's not, you're like gonna come out of it like not enjoying it because you were so prepared for it to be something that it just isn't. I think Evangelion's also like
Am I saying that right? Is it Evangelion?
I don't know.
Am I
like
making
to
a fool of myself?
Listen.
Fake fan.
I personally read it as Evangelion, but it could be Evangelion. I don't know. Evangelion. Evangelions.
There you go. But I see. I think I'm the right kind of pretentious for this show, and I hope that's not like something that's gonna offend someone who's a fan. But like, I do think that the show is like kind of pretentious, but in like a very fun and like entertaining, and it's a way that pleases me. It has an interesting way of just coming off with this really cool vibe and tone that I'm very into, and I find very compatible with like my own kind of artistic taste. So I vibed with it a lot. I thought I had a good time watching it, more than I thought I was going to. I liked it. It was cool.
You know, well, that's good. I get what you mean by it has like a sort of pretentious tone, not in a bad way.
Yeah.
Just like,
no, not in a bad way.
I know exactly what you mean.
It's
just it is what it is. Like, it feels like a little like, to put like kind of artsy in like how it's like it feels like an artsy indie game.
It's taking some risks, I think, in the way that it presents its story that are not conventional, and I appreciate that.
You know how like there are some like indie games out there that like aren't really like meant to be like, oh, just like a fun game, you know? It's meant to be like it's more of an experience, like that Gone Home game or whatever. Where, you know, it's like kind of a little pretentious, not in a bad way, just like that's just how it's like comes across, because like it's just the artsy nature of it. Like, it's inherently like an artistic thing, you know.
I can see watching Evangelion in 2020, I can see it kind of acting as the roots for a lot of art and a lot of media that I've enjoyed that I didn't realize it influenced, but I can definitely be like, oh, that seems like something that clearly influenced X, Y, and Z. Like, I talked about Pacific Rim, which is obviously rooted in like a love of mecha and kaiju kind of stuff, but like just you can see, I think also it takes a lot from like the idea of the apocalypse and the concern, the prioritization of like people and how people are functioning and how people's relationships are altered by their environment essentially collapsing. And that to me is like the more engaging and more interesting element of a story like that. And then like you get cool robot fights for sure, and that kind of thing. But I appreciate that it kind of goes in with this like small lens in this big world. It's so cool.
Yeah. Well, folks, I think that's going to do it for this second episode of I Will Never Watch Evangelion, the podcast in which we discuss...
I might watch Evangelion now. I gotta be real with you. I might check it out.
Honestly, I don't blame you. So far, this show, like everyone that's come on, being, you know, just you and Tiff, have said that they want to watch Eva after watching an episode of Eva.
It seems a little counterintuitive, maybe a little counterproductive.
I joked with Tiff in the first episode that, like, what if, like, this podcast was just, like, a ruse to get my friends to watch Neon Genesis Evangelion?
You're an absolute mastermind. You're playing the long con.
I'm playing 5D chess right now.
I don't even know. I haven't even fathomed the lengths that you are prepared to go to.
I'm playing Riskopoly.
Oh my god.
You know, the game in which you play Monopoly and Risk at the same time, and you only take a turn in Risk when you make a full go around in Monopoly.
You mad bastard.
Anyways, yeah, this is gonna do it for the episode. I have been RTRT2D. My guest has been Ezra. Ezra, is there any place that we can find you, or any like thing you want to shout out on this fine episode?
For sure. You can follow me on Twitter at Overbiter, and that is OVERBITER_. Or you can follow my Letterboxd, which is EmoPhase, spelled exactly how it is.
Alright, hell yeah. Well, thank you for coming on this podcast. It was a lovely time having you here.
I had a great time. Watched some good stuff and talked about some good stuff with my good pal.
Yeah, so until next time, I'll see you all later, and... I don't have an outro for this yet.
Don't watch Evangelion.
Don't watch Evangelion.
Don't do it.
Da 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 da. I don't know what I'm doing.